These Parfleche bags, they're made out of rawhide. I would call it a suitcase if I was talking in modern language. If you come right down to the nitty-gritty, they just call them rawhide bags. The rawhide is folded when it's wet so that it keeps its shape. They used them to pack all their belongings in when they were traveling. They would be used separately for different items. I would say that this is a food storage bag because inside it's a little cleaner than the rest of them. The big bag is more like a family bag. They were put on the back end of a saddle and strapped down so that they could get into them without having to take it completely off the horse. That one would probably belong to a lady. Most generally, they carried like their sewing items. I would say that it was used similar to a lady's purse because of the fringe work and the ornamentation that's on there. Sometimes they have a meaning depending on what they want them to represent. I've seen some with birds on them, and I've seen some with horses on them. And then, of course, these are geometric designs. It just depends entirely on the artist, I guess you would say.
Native American Plains tribes carried Parfleche bags as utilitarian bags. Today we will design our own using bubble mailers to mimic the look of rawhide. The materials we are using are a bubble mailer, a pencil, oil pastels, Q-tips, mineral oil, beads, and yarn. With a pencil, I'm going to start sketching out my first side of the Parfleche bag. I'm going to do diamonds because they honor my Choctaw heritage. Diamonds represent the diamondback rattlesnake and nature. So I'm going to start with that. But you can design whatever you like that represents you. Maybe that's animals, and maybe that's floral, or something that represents your family or where you live. I'm drawing these anchor points so it's easier for me to draw a straight line since I'm working on my Parfleche bag freehand. Just a note that I don't draw this fast. I sped up the video at parts to make sure you had enough time to do your design. Now let's bring this design to life by adding some color. We're going to use oil pastels to color in our designs. They work a lot like crayons. They look like crayons when you first use them. So go ahead and color in your full design. Now if you apply too much pressure, the pastel will break, but that's okay. You can still use the pastel, just remove the paper. I'm going to speed this up a lot because I want to make sure that you have enough time to color in your design as well. Now we're going to use the mineral oil and Q-tips to make it more saturated looking, much like paint. So be careful with the oil. You don't want to spill it. It will stain your design. You just want a tiny bit on your Q-tip. First, you want to work on a lighter shade before you move to an outer shade. So I'm going to do these yellows first before we do the outline of the black on the diamonds. Also, I'm going to use one Q-tip end at a time for each color so that my colors don't get all blended together. I feel really happy with this design. I'm ready to start the next side. Now, on the second side, I'm going to draw something to honor my Picanne heritage, or the Blackfeet, and I'm going to draw a morning star, which is a symbol of a hero in one of our creation stories. I'll also draw some moons to represent his mother. And you are welcome to draw whatever you like, whatever you feel best represents you and your family or where you're from. I almost forgot, you're going to want to put your name on your design. Now, if you don't want it on the front, you can put it on the inside of the flap of your Parfleche bag. I'm using a Sharpie, but you can use your pen or a marker, anything that you have at your desk. Now I'm going to skip to the end so you can see how we adorn our bag. Now we're going to adorn our Parfleche bags if you like. You don't have to because not all Parfleche bags had adornments like the Shoshone elder told us in the video, but I've provided you with some yarn and some beads if you would like to. You can make it like a strap, which is what I'm going to do with my bag. I'm going to make it kind of like a purse or so it could go over my shoulder. But if you don't want to make a shoulder bag, you can also cut your string in half using your scissors from your desk. So there's two sides that have holes on them, and just line up your string and cut the middle right here, and then you would know that you could just put the string on each side, not make it a shoulder strap. So we're going to start weaving this into the holes. Now the yarn will start to fray pretty easily, so you'll want to twist the yarn, and you may have to give it a bunch of twists to make sure that it doesn't fray as you go through the first hole. So we're going to go through this bottom hole down here and just, pull some of it through until you have a little bit of what we call a tail. So we have probably about 4 inches of tail here. And we're going to tie a knot so it's anchored to the bottom of the bag. So go ahead and tie a good knot. We'll do a single, and then we're going to double knot it so it doesn't pull and loosen up. We want it to be real tight. Now we're going to go through the next hole. So take the other end of the yarn and twist it again. And we're going to go through that middle hole of the bag right there. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit just so you have more time to work on your bag. So pull it through that middle hole all the way. Make sure you have a tight line at the bottom. Again, I'm going to make sure that that bottom is anchored. And now we're going to take our first bead and string it through the yarn. It's going to act as an anchor for your yarn so that you could string the yarn on one side in and out of the holes. And so you'll have yarn on one side and beads on the other. So work back through the hole, and again, make sure that you've pulled your string pretty tight, not so much that it's folding the bag, but that it makes a tight line. Again, we're going to twist again. We're going to go up through the next hole, pull it tight. And now, if you're making a shoulder bag, you're going to measure out how much of the yarn you want as your shoulder bag, as the shoulder strap. And I think I want mine about this long. So I'm going to tie a knot around the yarn. Now, if you need an adult to help you, they can help you. But just tie that knot around that piece of yarn. And now it should be good. Now it's going to stay secure and the strap won't move around. Now we'll keep weaving in and out of the second side, much like we did the first side. So again, we're going to work through that middle hole, and again grab a bead and string a bead on to your yarn. Don't forget to tighten up that by twisting the yarn each time you need to string it through a hole or a bead, because it'll probably start to fray quite a bit at this point. And we're almost to our end, and we're going to go ahead and tie another double knot to anchor that tail so it doesn't move around. Now you're done adding a strap to your bag. If you like, you can add more adornments. I love beads, so I'm going to adorn my bag with some more beads. I'm going to string a couple of pony beads to the bottom of each of the tails on my bag. Now to anchor the beads in place, I'm going to string one last bead on, and then I'm actually going to tie a knot around the string, and then I'm going to tie a second knot around that last anchor bead. So Again, make sure that your bead is going through the knot like this. And now your beads aren't going to fall off. So you have a nice tail with some beads on it. And let's do the other side. Alright, now that I have my bead strung on, I'm going to do that last anchor bead and tie a knot around that anchor bead, pulling the string through, or the yarn. And I want to make sure that's really secure. So that looks good. I'm all done with my Parfleche bag. I hope you enjoyed this project. I know I enjoyed sharing some of my culture with you.